Yep, not fixed. How you doing, guys? Today I have the little garden power lawnmower here with the engine torn apart. I had to take the carburetor back off. I was filming trying to start this thing, and it ran for about I'd say about 30 seconds or so, and then all of a sudden it just started acting up and smoking, and then it died, and I couldn't get it started, and then I brought it into the garage, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And fuel is just pouring out of every orifice. It's coming out of the front of the carburetor, it's coming out of the muffler. I pulled the spark plug, the whole bore was filled with fuel. You're never going to believe this, but the brand new float that I had bought is no good. I don't know if you can hear this, but yeah, see, I mean, look, you see right there's fuel. The float is filled with fuel, which is exactly the issue that the guy that I bought it from said this thing had. So I tore it all apart again, cleaned everything. You can see I got a brand new, I got a plastic float for it this time. So we'll go over that. Then the other thing that I found was it was pouring fuel out like so the carburetor, the way it is seated on the engine is like this. So like the primer bulb's on the outside. The fill elbow, okay, the fuel inlet elbow is on the inside. One of the things I also noticed was that there was just fuel pouring out the bottom or coming off the bottom of the bowl. Well, lo and behold, this thing's cracked too. So not only was it leaking fuel out the side of the inlet elbow, it was also allowing fuel to pour into the bore because of the bad float. This was original, so one of the original problems was caused by this. And then we've gone through two floats, a brand new float and the old float, which is right there, the original float that's on the floor over there. So we're going to go through this entire carburetor again. The only thing I did do, this is a press-in or press-on style elbow. I have already, I just put it in the vise, pulled it out. Then I just took this, lined it up real nice, and then just pressed it in lightly with that socket. So that is installed. But everything else, we're going to go through the whole carburetor again. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put this carburetor back together. Now, most of these little carburetors are exactly the same. They have a float and a needle. Some of them will have a high-speed jet and adjustment screw on the bottom, and then some have an idle jet, an adjustment on the side. This one does not have that. Same thing applies. You just look at your book and they tell you what the presetting is for the fast idle and then what the presetting is for the screw on your regular idle. Just follow your book. But outside of setting the needles, this is exactly how you do every single carburetor. All right, so we have the new rubber seal down in the bottom. You saw in the other video me put that in there. We're going to take the needle and the little holding spring, and we're going to go ahead and drop that into that little hole, just like that. And I usually have, when I'm looking at the needle, I want the wire to go from left to right. As you can see, this is probably right to left on you, but that's what it is. Next, you have a float. The float has this little like hooky thing right there. This piece of the needle, or this spring holder piece of the needle, has to go between, there it is, between that holder. So what I'll do is I'll drop this down, and then I'll just hook it into place like that. So now if I lift up on this, we're lifting the needle up and out of this seat area. The next thing we need is the pin, the float pin, which is this, okay? That goes through one of the stands in the carburetor body. We gently pass it through this, through the holes, through the neck stand, okay? Now, you know when the carburetor is correctly adjusted is when you look at it like this, okay? The float, the bottom edge of the float is parallel with the top edge or the bottom edge of the body of the carburetor. And as you can see, that is pretty darn level, okay? Usually you'll do it the opposing side from where the pivot is. The other thing I will do is I'll just take it and I'll just pull up and down on the float just to make sure that the needle will move with it, okay? And now that's it. This is all done. Now, if I had to do it, just pull this off real quick. Put that right in there. Now, if it was too low, I would pull this little tab. Whoops, it's over here. If it's too low, I'd pull the tab up, and that will raise the float. So it would raise it in this direction. And if I needed to lower it, I would gently push down on this little tab right there to lower the float. And then I keep doing that until it, like I said, it's level. This being one without an adjustment, a main adjustment screw, we basically just have the preset nut that goes into it. There is a big seal that goes right here, so that way it's the bowl will seat or seal to the bottom of the carburetor. And then on a Tecumseh, okay, they do have this little like lower area, flat area compared to the bowl that goes over the pivot. So this will go over like that. And that's it. That's all there is to it, to this carburetor. They're pretty simple. So I'm going to go ahead, put this thing together. I'm going to set up a fuel line from the gas tank to the inlet. And then using this pan, I'm going to test the carburetor to make sure that the float will close and seal off the needle. And in theory, we won't have any more fuel flowing into the bore. Okay, we are going to run the test and see if we can say that this thing isn't going to cause any problems. I have about a half a tank of fuel in there. You can see that tank is clean. Shouldn't be any garbage in there. I'm going to go ahead and just turn on the fuel here with you. I'm just going to flip the camera around, and then we'll let hopefully the bowl will fill and shut off when the needle touches the seat. So let's go ahead and swap around. All right, let's see what happens here. Setting up my camera. Sorry, of course it's not going to stay put because that would make it easy. All right, there we go. Take the fuel. Let's turn the fuel on. I can hear it filling up, and it appears to have stopped. All right. Yeah, I heard the fuel going into the bowl, and it stopped. So hopefully that'll just stay put. I'm not going to cap the tank completely, but it is vented, but I just don't want any problems with it. So I'm just going to put the cap on real light. We're going to take a flashlight, take a look inside. No, I don't see any fuel coming up the main jet tube. Nothing's coming out of the vent either. So, let me open this throttle shaft. Yep, no fuel's coming out the elbow either. So, let me just see something here real quick. No, the bowl seems to be good. All right. Just to make sure, right? Just want to make sure that there isn't, actually, you know what I am going to do? Just for tonight, I'm just going to put a little bit of tip in the gas tank, so that way I have a little bit of pressure sitting in the tube, you know? All right, well, we're going to let that sit overnight, see if that carburetor breaks and it starts to leak some fuel. Right now, looks like we're good. All right, we had some good luck. The carburetor held everything. It did weep a little vapor, or a little bit of gas condensation, I guess you would say, right out of the vent. But other than that, everything else seemed to hold. If I just gently tip it over, I can hear the float moving, so that's all set and ready to go. I'm just going to go ahead and pour the gas out of the gas tank into my lawnmower, so that way it'll make it a little easier reinstalling the items on the motor. So let me do that, and let's get this thing put back together. Have the carburetor bolted to the intake, so we're all set there. This is the throttle control system, but if you see this little arm right here, this arm right there, that little hook has to go through this hole right here in the throttle. So it's going to be a little difficult with one hand, but I got to hook that into this. Then I got to screw these two screws into the intake of the block. Make sure everything is level, meaning the carburetor is level, parallel to the ground, so that way the float works correctly. Tighten down these bolts, and then I'll get the couple bolts and put this thing, which is the kill switch. It's the governor control, and right here, this little nub is where the throttle cable hooks up. So let me get that all kind of situated, and let's see what happens. So in typical Tecumseh Briggs & Stratton fashion, there's all these little rods and springs, but everything seems to be hooked up correctly. This top one goes to that hole on the carburetor as I indicated. This one right here, which is the actual governor spring, the little rod goes over to the governor control tab. I have the throttle hooked up to the correct tab over on this side. I made sure that when we go all the way to stop, it engages the kill switch, which it does, and then to the best of my abilities right now, it appears to go all the way to full throttle. Everything's in place and tightened down. The wires, I've made sure that they're not in the way of the flywheel or anything to that effect. So I'm going to go ahead and put the blower cover back on, put the gas tank, attach the fuel line, and get the air box. And then this thing should be ready for some fuel, and hopefully it'll run. And there it is, the 1980 Garden Power lawnmower. I did do a bunch of work to it. I did spend some money on it, but hey, I mean, this thing actually mows really nice. I did my entire backyard except for that little section right along the trees where the leaves were real thick, but it was mulching it up and spitting it out just fine. I did my entire front yard. I'll show you that in a second, or I'll take a picture of it and I'll put it in the video. But yeah, I can't complain. I'm gonna clean it all up, and I'm going to eventually, whoops, it's over there. Eventually I'm going to find the chute that was, or the little black chute that was bolted to it. I asked the lady I bought it from if she had it, and you know what she said? Can I have the lawnmower back? I don't know if I'll give it back to her. I probably should, but I kind of like it. For right now, I ran it out of gas. It's done for the winter. I'm going to go ahead maybe tomorrow and clean it all up, polish it all back up, get all the grass off it. And I think I actually was going to put it in my garage up on the wall, like a lawnmower shop, but that's for another day. All right, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And remember, you know, these old units, they're worth saving. This thing mows nicer than my Husqvarna, my modern Husqvarna. If it was self-propelled, it'd be a different story, but in any event, there it is. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next project, you have a nice day.